We're here today for Maps API office hours. So I'm Chris.
And I'm Luke, and we're from the Maps Develop team down in Sydney.
So today we'll be answering some of your questions. Occasionally we'll do some sort of presentation on some new features, but today we're just answering questions. If we have time, we'll look at some Stack Overflow questions, and we'll go through all of the ones that you guys have added onto the Google moderator. So first of all, Kieran, you're our guest. Have you got any questions? Share with us what you're working on.
Yeah, well, I've just got the 3 that I've posted on the Google moderator. One was just like a airy-fairy question, and the other 2 I've kind of got JS fiddles for, so you can have a look at the working examples. Basically, we're using the Google API version 3, and we've just gotten into using the KML layer so that we can take KMLs from clients and draw stuff over our map. And we found that it's in the documentation, so it's all pretty clear, but your KML has to be public because it's doing the server's getting the KML, doing some stuff, and then sending that to our maps. So we think it's okay for now, but there's not a whole lot of sensitive data in there, but there might be in the future, and we're not 100% sure on it. So we're just wondering if there's any plans for that in the future.
Currently, no, because our servers have to render that data, so have to be able to access the KML file, read it down, and then save it in the file and send it into the browser. So we have to be able to access your KML file for us to be able to render it. There's probably a couple of techniques you could use if you wanted to make it semi-private, where you essentially give the user a token that expires after a certain time, and that's the URL that is loaded.
That's pretty much our way around it. Because we have the route publicly accessible, and then we just make the URL like a secretive sort of URL. So it'll probably suffice, but I was just checking to see if there's any future uploading it.
Yeah, so there is one alternative, and that's to render everything client-side, in which case you can control how it gets sent to the client. So if you're running KML specifically, there's a client-side parser called GGO-XML3, and that will go and take your KML file and display it on the KML layer, but everything's rendered client-side, so none of it goes to Google servers or through the internet.
Okay, so we would pass the KML and then add the features using the Maps API.
Yeah, exactly. Which you don't get the benefits of KML layers, such as being able to render many points and polygons. Because it's rendered server-side, it can be done very quickly. You've still got the limits of, parsing the XML in JavaScript, and B, adding Google Maps overlays. So you come into the same problems with adding lots of overlays.
Yeah, the problem's probably not big enough to worry about that. We'll probably just leave it as it is.
Yeah. I mean, definitely take a look at GGO XML, then that's probably...
Yeah, so that just reads the KML, and then we'd have to use the appropriate part of the API to put it on the map.
Yeah, I can't really recall. I think it might even give you back. It might even just let you add all of the map overlays directly to the map, or it might return you an array of features.
Cool. I'll check that out. Thanks for that.
Cool.
So the other 2 were to do with KML layers as well. One was to do with just error handling and connectivity. So if our servers are not responding or...
So I had a look at that one that you posted about, the connectivity issue, or if it finds one that actually doesn't exist. It goes to a weird position and zoom in. That definitely looks like a bug. We should fix that.
Yeah, that sounds like a bug, but There is a way to get some sort of idea client-side whether the KML layer has loaded or not. There's a MVC property called status. So if you listen to the event status underscore change, you'll be able to figure out whether the KML layer was loaded or whether there was some sort of error, like if it timed out or something like that.
So, yeah, I guess we were thinking of doing that, something like that, because we noticed that the properties were changed. We were going to look at, if it was zoomed right in and in a weird position, and then if it was, then fix it up. Is this status changed thing like something so that you don't have to get it into that state in the first place, or is it just another thing like the zoomed in state that you can?
I mean, the zooming shouldn't happen. That's definitely a bug, but the status changed event would let you maybe display an error to the user, or maybe possibly retry. If there was a timeout, you could retry.
Okay. Does it have like a cancel, so you can say, hey, actually don't do anything, just leave it as it is because it didn't load right?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you could just not do anything.
Okay, cool. So that's probably the advantage of querying.
Yeah. Because sometimes if your server is slow to respond, then we just won't be able to render it, so you can try again for whatever reason.
Yeah, that's kind of why we wanted to handle it gracefully, just in case of that.
Yeah. But if you haven't yet, you should already inspected Balbus as a bug. The current one is just built in, and as you've nicely done, you included a JS fiddle example, which makes our life a lot easier. So file an issue, and then we'll follow it up.
Okay. Where do I file the bug?
So if you go to the documentation, there should be a thing on the side that says issues.
Okay. Oh yeah, I think I've even seen on the Maps API it says report a map error or something. Is that?
Oh, report a map error is slightly different. That's actually report a data error with.
That's the data. Okay, so just file a bug in the Docker. Okay, yeah, I'll definitely check out that status change event. And the final one was just some advice. There's another fiddle there too. So I've played around with clickable, setting it to false, and that solves my issue with right-clicking on polygons, but then I can't click on the layer. So my thoughts on solving that was having clickable true, grabbing the event, and then re-raising it. Just wondering if I was doing something silly, if I was going to do it that way.
So the Maps API, if you're familiar with the DOM in HTML5, there's no concept of event bubbling in the Maps API. So if you right-click on a layer, that right-click event won't be propagated to the map below.
Yeah. That's what's happening.
Yeah, so it sounds like you've solved it sort of the way that I think you should, by sort of bubbling it yourself manually.
Okay, so that's a reasonable thing to do?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, that's all the questions I had.
Yeah. Oh, so yeah. Okay. You might find some lag as well when you're right-clicking. The event probably won't get fired straight away. So when you right-click on a KML layer, it actually sends that to Google servers. So you might see that lag in network, but it should function properly.
Okay. So that's because it's rendered it on the server side, and it's also doing the querying on the server side as well.
Yeah. So basically it says what feature have I clicked on? It goes and asks the server that, and then comes back and returns it.
So if I set clickable to false, it doesn't do all that stuff. It just renders on the server, and then that's the end of the communication.
Yeah.
Maybe one workaround is so the only reason I want it to be clickable is so that I can, if it has a info text on a pin, you can see what the info text is. Could a workaround be to put text? Like, is there another way of having a pin and then the text next to it all the time, or is that
Okay, well,
Not, yeah, not by Reddit. Not allowed. Yeah.
Okay.
Ready.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks for that.
no
Yeah,
worries.
great. Feel free to stick around. We'll be looking at some of the questions that other people have asked.
Yep. Sure.
How should we do this? Want to go from bottom top or top bottom?
Let's go from the top.
Okay, will Google Maps / Earth API v3? Oh wait, that one, yes, sorry.
Go presentation.
There we go. Loading. Cool. Okay, what is the leanest method for displaying many place marks on maps with various metadata? Loading via CSV, KML, Fusion Tables, App Engine. By lean, I mean overhead for device bandwidth.
Interesting.
It's, well...
So Luke and I wrote an article about displaying many place marks on maps. And you can find that on the documentation if you go to articles and go to the too many markers article. We present a whole bunch of different ways of handling this.
But really this depends on your use case and what your devices are. Like if user experience is that I need to see all this data at the same time, all zoomed out, then maybe KML / Fusion Tables is a better approach because that'll render all that data to tiles and it'll be quicker and less overhead. If it's more you're querying based on viewport and you've got a lot of interaction with the user, then maybe something like App Engine with JSON response to send back and you can just query based on the viewport and display markers that's just relevant to what you're currently doing at the time.
Yeah, so KML and Fusion Tables render server-side. So for many amounts of markers, you might have, say, 200 markers in one tile compared to rendering each of those 200 markers separately on the client. On a mobile device, that might be very slow. If we can render it using Canvas, it might be reasonably quick. But if we're rendering 200 different DOM elements as opposed to one for one tile, that can be quite slow. So I'd definitely look at KML and Fusion Tables, or possibly rolling your own tiles. If the data doesn't change at all, then you can pre-generate all of those tiles, or even generate them on the fly. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So that was the KML one. Right, this one, Chris.
So what is the proper way to destroy a map instance? So this is not something that we've really designed the API to do. Generally, we see people create one map and maybe destroy it once. If you're generating maps and destroying them continuously, then this is not really a use case that we support. It's a bug, but it's something that you probably shouldn't be doing.
Oh yeah, we recommend instead why don't you keep the same map object around and just keep reusing it.
Yeah. So if you need to keep hiding and showing the map, it's definitely better to just keep that map instance around as opposed to trying to delete it and create new ones, because I've looked into this and yes, there is a memory leak.
But your best option are to make sure you've cleared every listener that you've added to anything that was on the map, delete all the references to the map object, and you can either even clobber the div in HTML and override it in a text.
Yeah.
But some browsers will still leak.
Yeah. Pretty much every browser.
Every browser, eventually. We try our best.
Yeah.
There we go. Best practice for a large Google Maps project. Best use of APIs for a large number of markers. Example code of best practices.
Yeah,
this from John in Sydney.
Interesting.
It kind of relates to the question before. It depends on your use case.
Yeah.
What is the experience you're trying to give to the user at the end of the day? If it's a lot of data, then maybe something like KML or Fusion Tables. If it's not much data, then just markers are actually really good. Some best practices are to not make your marker bounce in if you've got lots of them, because that's individual DOM elements bouncing in, and then we write it as canvas. Setting optimize to true, because then they'll again will be painted in canvas instead of individual DOM elements. What else are you thinking?
I guess it depends what you mean by large. If you mean large in complexity, you might consider using MVC objects. So MVC objects are a way to separate your view and your model to provide clean separation between those concepts, which gives a pretty nice way of structuring a large project. Yeah, I mean, large number of markers, we answered, yeah, definitely look at that article, too many markers.
Yeah, that's if you want to, that's if it's just the Maps API, and then you can do other stuff in terms of using your JavaScript, like using the closure library and the compiler. That'll look over your code to make sure there's any bugs or anything and can improve performance in some areas.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you have any specific questions, you can add them later on next time.
I guess if you're showing complex overlays, you might start to consider rendering those server-side and sending down tiles. You can use image map type if you're showing lots of things at once. Seen some pretty cool stuff with that.
And some other things that we see as a common mistake is a lot of people, when they're first starting out, will just load every single marker in the entire world and then just send that down to the browser. So that's obviously, you know, if you're using JSON or whatever, it's a lot of data anyway to send down to the browser. You're creating a lot of markers that aren't actually visible. So you can do some stuff by getting the map bounds and then querying your server to say, just give me the markers that are between, you know, are in my bounds, and then just render those.
Yeah. By the way, if you're watching and you want to join, definitely, oh, Leon, I can see you're trying to join. I've added you to our circles, and Yoko as well. So if you'd like to join, hit join Hangout on the plus page, and you can come and hang out with us.
Cool, next one. I'm using fit bounds to fit all markers to the map, but when I only have one marker, the zoom automatically goes to 100%. How can I fix it?
What does this mean?
It means, so if you only have one
right.
marker, we fit bounds just to that one marker, and it's too zoomed in. What you could do is you could obviously add an event to listen for zoom changed, and then when you call fit bounds, you could either see that if your zoom is too high and then zoom out, or beforehand you could look at how many markers.
You can set the max zoom property on the map.
And there's no way you can set max zoom and min zoom on a map, so you don't go in too far.
But really, I'd just check if you have one marker and then choose a zoom level.
That is appropriate. Again, this is really hard depending on your use case.
Yeah.
You may want to be zoomed in far, you may want to be zoomed out far.
Yeah.
Yeah. KML. Will Google Maps and Google Earth API v3 allow clickable 3D models as per Google Earth Desktop?
I'm not sure. Luke and I don't really work on Earth, so I didn't even know there were clickable 3D models.
If you haven't yet, file a feature request. We don't usually talk about what we are working on or what's coming down the pipeline, but definitely file a feature request for this, and if enough people want it, we will look at seeing if it's feasible to implement. Chris is moving his laptop.
Oh, that's better. Okay. Oh, Leon, how's it going? Oh, I can't hear you. I think you're muted.
No, you're still muted.
I'm going to open up chat so you can chat to... Oh, he's chat.
Shall we carry on while...
Yep.
No mic, dude. You can do hand signals.
You can chat to us on the side if you'd like.
And Chris will read out.
So for people watching, Leon is our organizer
Down in Melbourne.
for the Melbourne Google Technology User Group.
Chris will try and repeat your question doing your voice as accurate as possible.
I don't remember what he sounds like. We don't have to say that. Leon's using a Chromebook. Yeah, my microphone broke on my Chromebook too. I also broke the developer switch as soon as I got it.
Leon is typing.
Okay, so let's go to the next one.
Let's go to this one and to Leon's question. Where are we? So will we improve Google Maps API for Android? Current API doesn't support fragments and it's difficult to include it in a fragment. Don't work on the Android Maps API, the Android team. You can join one of their Hangouts. They do them once a week, I think, as well.
Yes.
And you can ask them that, and they'll have a better answer for you.
Mm-hmm. So Leon is saying, oh, he has a better idea about 3D models. He says the person was referring to Android and right. Right. So our buildings that come out.
Oh, right. When you're in.
Yeah, I mean, again, we can't really talk about future plans, but you know, it's something that I'd really like to see now that we have you know, pretty good WebGL support. If we can start getting those 3D models down to the API as well, that would be brilliant.
File a feature request so we know how many people actually want it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Leon says, so can we, wait, that doesn't make sense, Leon. Can we build 3D models using this?
That would be cool if you could build your own 3D model and throw it into JS Maps.
Okay, let's go to the next one. So will you improve Google...
that was what we
sorry. We've developed a historical mapping app using the deprecated Maps API for Flash, and like the 3D effects for visualization, are there plans to enable 3D effects in the future for JavaScript v3 API? Not that I'm aware of, although it's certainly possible with the new 3D acceleration in browsers. So yeah, it's definitely something we should take a look at. File a feature request.
It seems to be that should just be the subject of this thing. File a feature request.
Hey guys.
Hey,
yeah, sorry I'm late. We got caught up in a furious meeting, which is
Brilliant.
just run over. Yep.
So for people watching, Tom is a developer here in Sydney.
Yeah, he
working
works
on
GoDash, which is a pretty cool Android iPhone app where you could find a taxi and it will come and pick you up.
Yeah. So they're doing some pretty cool things with maps. We had a look this morning, had a chat to them, which was great.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You got any questions for us, Tom?
No, I don't actually. I was just going to dive.
Alright, we've lost Tom.
We did lose Tom.
It's okay, he got his 2 minutes of fame.
Have we lost?
Okay.
Have we lost Leon as well?
Is my laptop not working?
I don't know.
No, because I've got you. Oh, Leon's still here. Okay, Leon, you're frozen. Tom, you're frozen. Okay, let's go to the next one.
Okay. Do you want to read the last one?
Will Google API v3 wrongly change against streets and location Catalan's name?
I think it means that we've changed the name on maps.google.com, and will it also change in v3?
So the locations we show in the Maps API are the same as the ones on maps.google.com. So if you ever see a problem, go down to the bottom right and hit report a map error. And there's a really great team working behind that to resolve issues quickly.
We should also mention out here that you can load the API in different languages. So I'm not sure what the problem actually was, but if we are showing you an English version of it instead of Spanish or Catalonian, yep, the producer just told me I said it right. That that you can load the API in that language, and you will probably see the tiles in the correct way that you want them to. Yeah. But if it is
so load with the Catalan localization.
Yeah.
So Leon's asking about optimization and lean techniques. He says a good use case might be to geolocate user, query server with map bounds, and return some JSON. So this is So this is a technique described in that Too Many Markers article. And yeah, it's definitely a way to go.
Quite a common way to do it, and it's quite a speedy way of doing it.
So you sort of want to avoid querying the server too often. So we've actually solved this in the API by providing an idle event, which basically tells you whenever the user has stopped moving the map and whenever they likely want to see some updated data.
Another option is to just listen to the bounce change event and you have a window timeout clear and question. That you have a window timeout that you clear every time it's updated, and then if the bounce isn't changing anymore, a timeout is fired, and that goes and does your Ajax query. And then you can do some nice things where you go get your results back, and maybe the user's only panned half a screen, so you also don't want to get rid of the markers that are already on the screen. So you do some sort of hashing to go, is that marker already on the screen? If it is, I don't want to take it off and put it on because I might see a weird flash and other stuff. So it's also a nice way to improve it.
So that's all we've got. You guys on the Hangout now? Oh, Leon's got some more questions. Have you seen any demo apps with the Places Events API? So the Places Events API is quite new.
We actually haven't seen any. I'd love to see some, actually. It'd be cool to see how people are actually using it.
Yeah.
The problem with the Places API is because it's mainly server-side, it's really hard to demo.
Yeah.
We did have a Places Hangout last week that is on YouTube if you guys want to go check it out. It was with Places TL, and they had some interesting stuff to look at. And Karen went and filed a bug. Good on you, Karen.
The engineers will be happy. They love bugs.
They do.
So, Tom, have you got any comments?
Yeah, no, sorry.
Purely
I lost my connection at the. Yeah, I was just ringing to see what people were talking about. Yeah, so I don't have anything specific I didn't talk to you about this morning. So, yeah, it's interesting about the Places Events stuff.
Yeah.
So that's a brand new API.
Yeah, so if you're interested in the Places Events API, definitely go back and watch last week's Hangout. So I think they did a quick run through of the Places API and the new Events API.
Yeah, cool.
Essentially, people can check into events.
It's basically temporary places, so you don't pollute your event space with events or places that are no longer useful. So if it's like South by Southwest, people picking the line. So you don't really want that line to exist for another week.
Yeah.
So let's go over to Steve.
Hey guys. Hey, I don't really have any questions. I was just more kind of popping in as I do.
We need a couple of people like we're down at the pub. To jQuery or not to jQuery? For the mobile apps, what are your thoughts?
Whoa, interesting question.
It is a very interesting question. jQuery is cool. It solves a lot of annoying code you have to write for a lot of browsers. It can get a little bloated depending on what you're doing. You may have some specific tasks where jQuery is trying to solve too much of the use case. But generally, I'd say if you're going to use a framework, jQuery is up there with one of the good ones.
Yeah. My advice would be to use it selectively.
Yeah, it is like about 100, I think 107K or something like that. I could be completely wrong, but downloading that on a mobile phone if you're, maybe somewhere in a country that doesn't have great mobile data, that's some time.
I think a good use case for using jQuery is where you're using it elsewhere as well. So don't use it just specifically for your maps.
Yeah, totally, because if you're using just the Maps API and most of the stuff you're doing is essentially events, the Maps API provides an add listener and add DOM listener. So, and most of the time people are just using events and selectors.
Yeah.
So also newer modern browsers, especially on mobile, have query selector. So using that and the Maps API events, you really don't need jQuery for a lot of your stuff anymore. And then CSS animations has now removed the animate part.
If you want the selector engine behind jQuery, you can use that separately as well. It's called Sizzle. So that's great. If that and events is basically all you're doing, then you can use the Maps API and Sizzle to.
Yeah, and they also have native JSON parsing now.
Yeah. Oh, and Kieran's saying you can use Zepto as well.
Yeah.
So Zepto's pretty lightweight. I think it's like under 10K or something like that.
So yeah, it's depends on your use case. If you need everything that jQuery has to offer and you're going to use it all, then go for it. It's a really great library. If you don't, then maybe look at something that only has what you need.
Yep.
See, everyone nodding. Yep. I like Node.js. The Chrome guys love Node.js. Go talk to Eric about Node.js.
So, what else should we do?
I don't know. Have you got anything cool to show people?
I do not. Not this week. Maybe next week.
Has anyone got any suggestions for a theme that we should do for the next one? Has anyone been wanting something really, cool, or you got any really crazy questions?
Did you guys demo OpenGL or WebGL last week or last month?
No.
So, I did a talk at SID.js on WebSockets and WebGL. So maybe I'll demo that in the next Hangout. That might be a bit of fun. We can do a bit of a maybe a visualization themed Hangout, something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe get Anthony and Tu to show off some of the crisis mapping.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So visualization's a great topic.
I wonder if we can get you some of that data.
Yeah. So Leon wants to see some collaborative mapping. So maybe some Ushahidi style stuff. Interesting. So explain geoterms such as the difference between thematic and heat mapping.
Ooh.
Yeah.
GIS people here.
I hope someone else is explaining that.
Yeah, we would do a very poor job.
Does it work with jQuery?
Although that definitely ties into the visualization.
Totally. We should find some cool people who know how to talk about the GIS side of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
So,
do you have a URL for the GeoXML? Let me have a look.
So Leon says, often I see people get confused when scoping work. What's that? I think you missed a thing. Right. So there's many different ways to visualize data. It really depends what kind of data you have and what you want to get out of it.
And Kieran, here is the link for the GeoXML library for V3.
Cool.
No problem.
So I think is that it? For today?
Yeah, I think that's kind of it. Unless there's been any last minute questions added. Nope, that's it. I think that's kind of it. Yeah.
So we're hoping to make this a regular thing and get in some guests and have some themes.
Yeah.
Next week's theme is pirate hats, according to Leon.
Pirate hats. All right, interesting.
That shouldn't be a problem.
No. If there's one thing Chris and I are known for, it's wearing hats.
Hats, yeah, definitely.
Good. All right.
Okay. Thanks,
All right,
everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
See you later.
Sure.
Hey.
All right.